It lasted 275 days. It included experiences so painful this video probably needs a trigger warning. And it spawned memes that will never go away. This is the story of Rocket League Season 3. In this video, I'll be covering the Rocket League milestones between June 20th, 2016 and March 22nd, 2017. Now, it won't be chronological, but instead will be a topical discussion of the major events, updates, and what it was like to experience Rocket League during this time period, told by someone who was there. But before we get started, I do have to thank today's sponsor, Raycon. Now, Raycon is quickly becoming a well-known brand in the wireless earbud market, but they continue to sell without that brand name markup, giving you a high-quality product for much less than their well-known competitors. And this quality extends right down to their most affordable model, the everyday E25s. So you'll notice that there's no stem or wire antenna sticking out of my ear, and that's because it's not 1960. You should be able to connect to your wireless devices without looking like you're from some old sci-fi movie. And when you combine its compact design with the fun color choices, you're sure to find something that'll fit your style, ear, and budget perfectly. And right now, you can do it for less with 15% off when using my link that's in the description. So be sure to check out Raycon wireless earbuds. When players hear the word Season 3, they often think of two things: its marathon length and the ranks. But the story of Season 3's ranking system is not a simple one, and is often misunderstood or exaggerated. When Season 3 started on June 20th, 2016, the game had been out for almost a year. Thus, Psyonix felt it was a good time to do a full skill rating wipe, better known as a hard reset. Their intention was to see how the skill curve would shape up without the data from previous seasons, and the best way to do that was to make everyone start back at the bottom. Now, for a large portion of the player base, this made for a very painful start to the season, as ranks took weeks to settle out. The best rank you could hope for if you won all 10 placement matches was around Challenger 2, or Gold if you're trying to compare it to our ranks today. Pros were playing prospects, and even former GCs were having trouble getting back to where they thought they belonged. The backlash is evident when you go look at Reddit and Steam posts from that time. Some players resorted to waiting out the chaos, but in effect, that probably just helped spread the problem out over a longer period of time. Eventually, the ranks did settle out, and Psyonix decided an adjustment was needed. As you can see on this graph, the 5 highest ranks were held by only the top 1% of the player base. While exclusive higher ranks are a good thing to have, this number was far too low. So on October 11th, 2016, 113 days after the season started, a competitive rank recalibration was implemented to bring Grand Champion up to a more reasonable 0.2%. This did mean that players all the way down to Superstar were suddenly considered to be GC, but at 0.2%, it was still more exclusive than the top ranks of other competitive games. At this point, probably even unknown to Psyonix themselves, the season still had over 160 days left. So with that much time remaining, would the rank distribution continue to go as they had envisioned? When Season 4 finally arrived in March 2017, a new ranking system was introduced. As the skill in the community continued to grow, it was decided that the players should be spread across more ranks. Grand Champion would have a new icon, and was planned to not be as difficult to get as the original Season 3 version, but also not as common as the post-recalibration GC. Which brings us to the giant pink elephant of Season 3. And the common question: how bad were Season 3 Grand Champions? This eventual meme started as soon as Season 4 did, with people complaining that Season 3 GCs were no better than Plats, or wondering why they are finding GC tags in Diamond. Well, in this video, I want to finally set the record straight. First of all, Season 3 GCs represented the top 0.3% of players. This was confirmed by Psyonix developer Corey near the end of the season. 7,800 GCs is not a lot, guys, and only 0.1% higher than the goal Psyonix set out during the recalibration. Now, with the changes in Season 4, obviously a lot of players were not going to make that cut, which ended up consisting of the top 0.07%. But based strictly on percentages, Season 3 GCs should have been around Champ 1 in Season 4. By Season 7, the top 0.3% was good enough for Champ 2, and by Season 9, this percentage included GCs again. So if you think the Season 3 GC tag is somehow fraudulent, well then every GC since Season 9 is too. But there is a few other factors to consider as well. Remember, Season 3 was 9 months long. Someone could have easily got GC early in the season, got bored, and took a 5-month break before coming back for Season 4. It's not hard to picture them not living up to the tag after that. And finally, we do have to face the fact that there would have been some boosted Season 3 Grand Champions. The The requirement for rewards was only to touch the rank, not the 10-win system we have now. Boosting was an issue, though Psyonix was not unaware and did ban or hard reset a lot of players that made use of it. In conclusion, as a group, Season 3 GCs were better than 99.7% of the player base. Now Season 4 moved the goalposts, but many Season 3 GCs went on to get GC in every season after that. Also, we should remember that comparing skills between seasons is both unfair and impossible. Now after the toppers in Season 1 and the boost trails in Season 2, Psyonix almost made the long season worth it with their wheel rewards in Season 3. Now personally, I missed out on the champ wheels by only a couple wins, so it still hurts to look at these. Let's move along. Season 3 launched with Psyonix fully committing to the future of non-standard maps. The experimental Rocket Labs map Underpass was released straight into competitive as Neo Tokyo. Now I think in the beginning most of us went into Neo Tokyo with an open mind, but it didn't take long before the issues of having one drastically different map in rotation started to become evident. Even ignoring the broken physics that had to be fixed a few months later, the different bounces and paths around the field were too much for a lot of the players to adapt to. Really, it would take you spending dedicated time training on that map in order to be ready for it when it came up. And at that time, most of us didn't have the tools, skills, or even desire to do that. We weren't even able to select that map in free play, never mind the fact that custom training was still months away. Psyonix thought we were ready? We weren't ready. In September, Psyonix made an appeal to the casual player with the release of Rumble. This random item-based mode started out as a casual playlist and continues to be popular down to its ranked version we have today. The new free map in October was Aquadome, which thankfully was of standard shape and size. But for this one, optimization was an issue, as many systems had to deal with frame drops and even crashes. These issues persisted until the Season 4 update changed the map to what we have today. December saw another Rocket Labs map released into competitive as the Octagon became Starbase Arc. But its large unfamiliar shape and bounces made it another unpopular arena, especially when you think of how the size would have translated poorly to 1v1 and even 2v2. Also in December, the experimental Rocket Labs playlist was removed, and its maps added straight into casual. This terrible idea lasted all of 5 days, when Psyonix realized that most players did not want to play on these non-standard maps. Now there was an effort made to find out what the player base did want with the release of the map preferences feature, but because downvoting a map only lessened the odds you would end up on it, it was often viewed as broken by the community. As someone who is usually pretty well versed in all things Rocket League, I was actually surprised that the map preferences feature still exists. I must have totally forgotten about it. But if you go to Play Online, there's a button underneath the playlist where you can upvote or downvote your maps. Assuming that it actually does anything. The Season 4 update in March finally saw the end of Neo Tokyo, at least in its non-standard form. Wasteland and Starbase would live on for a few more months, but the end of non-standard maps was close at hand. March was also the release of Dropshot, Psyonix's answer to the often requested volleyball mode. Now it's interesting to note that actual volleyball was tested by Psyonix, as it was found in the game files as far back as June 2016, but they pointed out that a mode that reset anytime the ball touched the ground seemed to end up with a game that had too many stops and starts, especially for a lower skilled player. To date, Dropshot is considered to be the last major permanent game mode Psyonix has released. Season 3 brought a lot of changes to the game, some that we now take for granted or even ignore. To start with, we finally had something to do with all those random drops we had accumulated over the last year when trade-ups, new rarities, and painted variants became available in June 2016. June 20th also saw the release of post-game celebrations and titles for specific accomplishments during the match. What you might not know is that these celebrations used to be a bit longer than we have now, allowing for more complicated maneuvers. This was later shortened, which isn't a huge deal, except for teams like this who saw their former Reddit-topping celebration now rendered impossible. September 2016 was probably the biggest cosmetic update that Psyonix has ever done. We got 10 car presets. We were given the ability to equip specific items to each team. The color palette was expanded. Player-to-player trading was added. And finally, loot crates and keys were introduced. Now, if you're newer to Rocket League, crates were how most cosmetics used to be sold. You would use a $1 key to get a random item from a specific crate series. They were introduced as part of Psyonix's plan to fund Rocket League esports, and have since been replaced by blueprints, credits, and the item shop. Psyonix responded to another community requested feature when they released custom training in December 2016. While such capabilities were possible with third-party PC mods such as Rocket League Trainer, this update simplified the process and allowed console to benefit as well. Another quality of life improvement that came in December was post-match highlights. Now I can't think of another addition that went so quickly from being wanted and requested by the community to forgotten and ignored. Now perhaps it was the way it was implemented, but I remember thinking at the time it was such a great idea. But when's the last time you excitedly watched the endgame replays? I think that actually leads into the end of this video pretty well. There's been a lot of changes to Rocket League over the years, many that we just take for granted. But to get to where we are now, there's also been growing pains, and Season 3 probably shows that better than most. By the time it ended, cosmetics, maps, and ranks had all undergone major transformations. And you have to admit, it was mostly for the better. Was it perfect yet? Well, no. Heck, even transparent goalposts were still 7 months away. But that's probably something else you take for granted now too, isn't it? My name is Rocket Sledge. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and also take the time to check out the other episode in this series where I covered the first year of Rocket League. Also, due to some changes with YouTube, viewer satisfaction is getting weighed a lot higher. So if YouTube asks about one of my videos after you watched it, please take a moment to give it an accurate rating. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.